I think Mr. Govindasamy and rest of the distinguished participants made certain requests, and I would like to say, by and large, we believe in consensus, coming togetherness, unity, work and act with one voice. And if I may tell you, if the country is to go ahead with a disciplined approach to recover, in addition to going to the IMF, debt restructuring, so on and so forth, the first thing we have to do, we have to repeal the 20th Amendment. Right now. Right now we have to repeal the 20th Amendment because the 20th Amendment resulted in an extreme concentration of power in the hands of the executive. And this has led to misuse and abuse of power. Hence, we are facing the consequences. More than all of us, the silent majority, which consists of 22 million people, those from the lowest strata of society upward. So to be very honest and very frank, I would suggest to use your good officers to make representations to the present administration. We can do it as an emergency act. We have to make sure consensus government exists rather than a unipolar, singular approach to governance. So we have to get rid of the 20th Amendment. That will facilitate everyone to work together, because no matter what you talk about working together and so on and so forth, this particular administration has acted with absolute impunity. COVID was a disaster. The Disaster Management Act prescribes by law as to how you should behave in times of disaster. The Disaster Council or the committee, which comprises of people from all walks of life in terms of political beliefs and political ideology, it was never convened. It was never convened. So how can you expect an administration that did not convene the disaster committee, which comprises of representatives from the government and from the opposition? How can you expect compromise from them? Because let me make myself very clear. I hear everybody echoing, go to the IMF, restructure debt. First, ask the question, why did this need arise? Soon as the government came in, it went for a massive tax cut, 600 billion rupees approximately, loss of 2 to 3% of GDP in terms of state income. That resulted our loss of rankings in Fitch, Moody's and Standard & Poor. That obstructed Sri Lanka entering the international capital markets to raise refinancing loans, which resulted in us as a country or the government using the hard-earned reserves for essentials such as food, oil, medicine, so on and so forth, in raw material inputs. Loss of reserves or heavy utilization of reserves have led to low levels. When you talk of a country in a stable position, roughly you are meant to have about 6 to 8 months coverage of imports. I mean, if I was the leader, I would go for higher standards, try to maintain 8 and 12, because if you aim at 8 to 12 months, you will achieve 6 to 8 months. That's how we should drive government and decide on governmental policy. So, no fuel, no dollars to buy fuel, no power, loss of production, loss of export destinations, and you have the vicious cycle of no dollars. So we have arrived at this situation because of economic mismanagement. Now, why I went back in time is to assure you all we will not commit these same foolish mistakes in our administration. That's point one. Point two, I think you all mentioned about restructuring, SOEs, price changes, making the prices more market oriented, so on and so forth. Now, please do understand that we have also done our studies on IMF intervention and so on and so forth. There are countries such as Ukraine, Jamaica, Ecuador. They are shining examples of how IMF intervention at an early stage, I have to put that in quotation marks, at an early stage has provided them with positive results. After 8 to 10 months, or maybe even less, the diminution of their status in the international financial rankings has basically been elevated. The downward trend has been stopped and they have come back to levels where you could enter the international capital markets. So our aim should also be to somehow or other improve our rankings in the rating institutions such as Fitch, S&P, and Moody's, so that we have access to capital markets, so that those refinancing facilities will be able to furnish our country's objectives, whether it's capital payments or interest payments, so on and so forth. And of course, we all know with IMF intervention, we will get some amount of funds, and more than that, we will gain international confidence. Through that international confidence, we will also be able to get some sort of a moratorium on your debt payments and interest payments. So those are the pluses. But we have to arrive at a deal which is acceptable to the people. We cannot just blindfold say that we are going to agree to all. Unfortunately, the government strategy has put us in a very, very poor bargaining position, right? You all know very well when we move into negotiations, being premier industrialists, you like to bargain from a position of strength. We as a country, as a sovereign nation state, we will be bargaining from a position of extreme weakness. So the fact that whatever is put on the table and opposition is going to agree to that, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. I can't give you that promise. But I can promise that there will be no politicking, that there will be no petty political minded decisions if there is a proposal that is sound and that adds value to the country and to the people rather than to the rulers. We will not agree to anything that adds value to the rulers, by the way. If it adds value to the people, the 22 million, certainly we can talk about agree. Otherwise, we cannot just take a whimsical policy position and say, paint the whole thing with a brush and say, okay, we are going to unconditionally agree to everything. I'm sorry, we can't do that. We won't do that. That is not sound government. That is not sound governance. And please do understand, we as the SJB, we too have our own economic principles, which we cannot diverge from. And by and large, our economic principles and the beliefs and the thoughts of the vast majority of the country are in sync. So basically all this time, what we had in our country was a kleptocracy, a governing elite and a governing regime that was looting the treasury. We can't agree to proposals that may impact inimically on the people just for the sake of compromise. So we will very critically examine in detail, in minutiae detail, the proposals, and we will do a cost-benefit analysis by the country. If the benefits outweigh the costs, certainly we'll agree. So we are going to go on a very scientific, a very methodical, a very professional approach, just as much as your good selves adopt those techniques in managing your own enterprises. So we will adopt the same strategy. That is, we will look at the highest rate of return for the country and for the people. And you can be rest assured of that. So as far as our support and in terms of compromising, yes, we will have that as our benchmark in terms of providing our consent and acquiescence. Next, I would like to add one more thing. Even though the government has disregarded the opposition, they behave as if there is no opposition. They act with impunity because the vast majority of the country gave them a very free hand to do whatever they like. Even in such circumstances, I would like to bring to your notice, from day one, we questioned the government on the loss of rankings. We put it out on media, it never came out. We put it out on social media, vast majority laughed at us. What is he going on about? Moody's? Standard & Poor? Fitch? What the hell are they talking about? That was the reaction. And look where we are now. Those loss of rankings have shut the door for Sri Lanka to enter the international capital markets for refinancing. So, all these pitfalls and so on and so forth, these were committed, unfortunately, by the administration. And I just want to make one qualification. It was said that there was a common approach towards COVID. I don't agree with that because, pardon me, I have to disagree. When we spoke of the bare necessities, such as the provision of masks, it was dismissed. When we spoke of having the government taking precautionary measures in terms of inflow of people into the country, it was rubbished. We were told not to talk about it because foreign countries would get angry. When we spoke of medicine, we were laughed at. When we were the first to tell the government to allocate funds and order the vaccines, they were going after throwing pots into the river, and they were putting all their eggs into the penny basket, the syrup, the so-called indigenous syrup. You must not call it indigenous because it's an insult to indigenous medicine in our country. So what were the consequences? How many lives did we lose? How many valuable people? All of them. All of the people who lost their lives. I believe at least a large number could have been saved. So adherence to mythical stuff rather than depending on science, that led to this debacle where we have lost thousands of lives, very valuable lives. And we all know how it happened. I have had the opportunity of meeting a lot of international representatives. Even just yesterday, I had a meeting, we all had a meeting with countries representing the Islamic countries. It's called the Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC. And I will WhatsApp to you the first statement, the right at the inception. What did I say? please try and help Sri Lanka unconditionally. I didn't talk about good governance. I didn't talk about anything, because please understand, we are right in the midst of a volcano. I hope you do remember the words that I uttered, economic Armageddon, which was laughed at. We are in the midst of an economic Armageddon. And we are facing an apocalyptic situation. And it took for the Ukraine-Russian war for us to use the word political oligarchy. When Sajith Premadasa spoke about a political oligarchy way before the Ukraine-Russian conflict, it was not too good. But anyway, so that's the petty-minded type of thinking, sentiment that is pervading Sri Lanka today. We have to move on from that. We have to put aside all our, small differences, and we have to unite ourselves. I listened to all the grievances, and I can assure you, at all times, we as the opposition, the main opposition, are willing to go the extra mile to help industry, to help businesses, to help enterprises, because we all believe y'all are the engine of growth. The small and medium-sized businesses and yourselves, the large conglomerates and the big companies, all of y'all, without exception, y'all are the engine of growth. And we believe that. And it's in our blood. It runs in our veins. So there is no need of any convincing on your part. We are fully convinced, and we will fully back you. But I think, very humbly, my personal opinion, I don't think that the present administration has the necessary tools, if I may use that word, the necessary policy instruments to bring this country out of this mess, to extricate ourselves from this quagmire. We are just, digging ourselves into a bigger hole. Because, you see an avalanche coming. You see a tsunami coming. But you turn the other way and say, oh, it's nothing. Just forget about it. It'll just stop halfway. This is the type of decision making that has led to debilitating our society and our country. So make no mistake, you all have provided your list of grievances, and I feel extremely sorry about it. I feel very, very sorry about the predicament that you all are facing, and the predicament the people in the country are facing. But to be very honest, we will give our constructive support, progressive support. But I'm unfortunately, with the way things are going, as we see, I can't see much light at the end of the tunnel. And if you're seeing light at the end of the tunnel, please show me. Please show me where it's coming. Because even in this darkest hour, why is the government hesitating, prevaricating? Have they got the international financial advisors? Apparently, I heard somebody in the hierarchy saying, oh, we don't need international financial advisors, because apparently he knows best. Come on. He's going to do the negotiations. He's privy to all the IMF negotiations. Does he have the expertise? It's rubbish. The legal advisors have not been recruited. These are facts, by the way. If you all differ, please interrupt me and then tell me you're uttering falsehoods. Not at all. And I'm not sure whether they have commenced the process towards getting help and assistance of the International Monetary Fund and the debt restructuring program. Why can't you fast track it? If you can fast track the construction of walking paths, if you can fast track the highways and its construction work, Why can't you fast track this? People are suffering in the queues. You have the diesel, petrol, kerosene, gas, milk powder, and rice queues. Do you know, I get a call from Tissamaharama today, the millers, in the guise of selling rice, they are selling rice which cannot be consumed. This is because the foolhardy decision with regard to fertilizer. I mean, you're dealing with an administration that has gone mad. They don't know where they're heading. There's absolutely no leadership, no direction, no purpose. They're just in a dream world thinking that everything will correct itself. I'll let the others talk with just one last comment. And I'm so happy, eminent people like Mr. Govindasamy et al., that is with others, I don't want to mention all their names, were included in the Economic Decision-Making Council. But that was the second step. Who were the first entrants? It was after criticism was voiced, when incompetent, unintelligent, incapable looters were included in the first team. I mean, we went to town criticizing it. Then, lo and behold, eminent personalities such as Mr. Govindasamy and others got the opportunity of entering into this particular forum and providing some sort of sanity into this crazy operation. So, last, we are with you. We are willing to compromise, but we are not willing to compromise on non-gains. It has to be gains to the country. So I want to be very clear about that. And please have trust and faith. SJB has the best economic team, the best economic program, and the best international links. Please explain to some of your colleagues who have gone on a dream wave with illogical thinking that we cannot bail out Sri Lanka from bankruptcy by having contacts with North Korea or even Cuba. Please bring some sanity and bring them to some senses as far as practicalities are concerned. I assure you, we as a political party, we have gone on a revolutionary approach. No other opposition political party has ever done development work and have ever received developmental aid. We have received development aid from foreign nation states. Never in the history of Sri Lanka's democracy has the opposition ever achieved that particular result. So, I've said last so many times, this will be the last. Last, but it should have come first. Please do understand. The 22 million people also should know there is a bitter pill to swallow. There is no magic wand that will create prosperity and development at an instant. So, we all have to make sacrifices. We'll all have to go through the structural changes, better female participation in the labor force, the SOE restructuring, I totally agree, and try to have a gradual approach of coming towards a market-based instrument. However, we have to ensure that we cushion the less fortunate in society. We cannot have social upheaval just in the name and for the sake of restructuring and reform. That is very important, right? And by the way, in this situation, large swaths of people have gone into the poverty bracket. Lots of them, whom you won't even believe, have gone into the poverty bracket, and there's a poverty trap, there's a debt trap, there's a development trap, all the traps we are in. And also, I would like to say that we will take a very positive approach towards restructuring and reform, because we cannot go on like this. It's a fact. And make no mistake, even in this disaster, it will provide us with opportunities to make far-reaching changes to make sure that our country's economic fundamentals are sound from now on.